the wonderful Pramod K.G, who's introducing Mr. Goswamy. If you could give them a very, very warm welcome, we'd like to ask them to the stage. Thank you so much.
Evening, everybody. At the beginning of the festival, when I was asked to sort of introduce Dr. B.N. Goswamy, one of the comments I heard from my friends was that, oh, that's fairly easy, you don't have to say anything because people know Dr. Goswamy and his work very well. And while it might sound like a cliche, the fact is that people do know of Dr. Goswamy's work. But why it is important for us to give an introduction or a perspective into his work is because unlike a lot of following that we have for books in the country, art historians and the material they produce don't necessarily get that kind of attention. And we are very privileged today that we have Dr. B.N. Goswamy at Jaipur, who's speaking on Nainsukh of Guler, a great painter from a small state in India. Dr. Goswamy in 1968 produced one of the most remarkable essays called Pahari Paintings, The Family as the Basis of Style, which was kind of groundbreaking because it for the first time explained to people that it was not just courtly affinities and styles that created the look of a miniature painting, but perhaps a sense of aesthetic and a degree of hand that the family continued having within the style. And over the last 30 to 40 years, his work has been extensively in trying to continue this research and this scholarship, and has in context opened up a huge window of study for artists within the country and art historians across the world who have from this great intervention. But what's also most important is that in these 40 years, he's managed to draw attention to this stylistic basic by families within the courtly tradition in princely fam states across the country who've painted in a certain way, and why the study is important is perhaps going to be best illustrated when he talks in a bit now. Last year we were also wonderfully privileged to have a show curated by Dr. Goswamy along with Milo Beach and Eberhard Fischer at the Museum Rietberg in Zurich and then at the Metropolitan Museum, New York, where it was on the great masters of Indian painting from 1100 to 1900. And it was for the first time that we had painters from across the country following familial traditions being examined in that context. And though there were two other curators, I'm sure it was Dr. Goswamy who sort of mooted the idea and brought this together to us. Besides all of this, for somebody like me who also works a lot with Indian textiles, ancient Indian textiles, Dr. Goswamy's work is very important because some of the most pioneering works on Indian costumes and textiles, Mughal textiles, have been done by Dr. Goswamy, working at the Calico Museum with their remarkable collection. And perhaps it is this larger than life and also his extraordinary scale of research on a whole range of allied visual material that gives him a particular intake into this subject. And we are thus very privileged that we have somebody like him who is here today going to speak about Nainsukh of Guler. And I make this point particularly because in this world of super specialization, it's very rare that we have scholars who look at a range of allied material and then give us a particular intake into it. So without much ado, I'll let Dr. Goswamy come forward and speak of Nainsukh of Guler, his enigmatic patron Raja Balwant Singh, who we know very little about even now, and of course the unique research methodology by which this story got unfolded into the world of art history in India. Dr. B.N. Goswamy.
I have no idea of how many people have heard of the name Nainsukh, and I can easily understand that when you come to a lecture like this, then anxieties must be hanging about in the air like bats in abandoned palaces. But let me briefly introduce you to Nainsukh. Nainsukh is the name of a painter. You can't have a better name if you are a painter, because that means the delight of the eye. And he came from a very tiny little state, Guler, up in the Pahadi area in the hills of Himachal Pradesh. Guler is some place which you can't even locate easily on the map of Himachal Pradesh. So tiny is it. So when you have a painter, a great painter coming from an obscure state like that, then you wonder, where does it all come from? I do not know how to put it. I mean, let me take the help of a great writer in Urdu, Nadeem Qasimi, who was writing about a very beautiful young woman, Sabi by name, and I'll repeat this in the Urdu and then translate it for you. He goes to a little village and there is this very beautiful woman whom he has not seen before. And she's sitting in a corner and suddenly she gets up and Qasimi says, मैले कुचैले कपड़ों के ढेर पर से साबी ऐसे उठी जैसे गर्द आलूदा सदफ से मोती उछल पड़े. Suddenly, she got up from a heap of old clothes and came into the light, and it felt as if from a dusty oyster a pearl has suddenly sprung out, and so on, like that. So the dusty oyster is Guler, and the pearl that I'm going to talk to you about is Nainsukh. We are here in this place. It doesn't have the remotest resemblance to a Mughal tent, nor did the green room have any greenery in it, but that's another matter. What I am interested in doing with you this afternoon requires a certain amount of concentration. You know, I'm reminded of a great couplet of the great poet of Delhi, Mir Taqi Mir, who said it's a very subtle world. He says, Le saans bhi ahista ke nazuk hai bahut kaam, aafaq ki is kargahe shisha gari ka. Breathe softly here and gentle, because the world that the heavens have put together, the vault that is above us, is fragile and delicate. But this world is complex and subtle and layered, into which I am going to lead you to the extent that I can. We all know that we have a remarkable paucity of information on painters, individual painters of the past. In fact, if you are looking for names of painters or their biographies and so on, you would draw a blank very, very quickly indeed. If you were to put all information on all painters of the past, hard facts, I'm not talking about speculations, in one volume, it may not go beyond 30 pages for 2000 years of the history of Indian art. So, we are in a world of silence, essentially surrounded by a world of silence, in which you have to strain your ears very, very hard to be able to hear the slightest whisper coming from the past. But when you catch that whisper, when you come face to face with a great name like Nainsukh, then a world, as it were, opens up before you. To trace the career of an individual painter, I opened a book that I wrote on Nainsukh some years ago with an image which keeps flashing across the screen of my mind repeatedly. If you are in Haridwar, which is where the Ganga debouches from the hills into the plains, then on the bank of the Ganga, every evening thousands of people gather, and they have platters in their hands made of leaves on which some lights, some fruit, or some flowers are placed, and they release them in homage to the great river on the waters. And when you release your own platter on the waters of the Ganga, the water is relatively calm on the bank, but slowly all these platters begin to move towards the center of the stream. And when they do that, They are joined by other platters and so on. And after some time, since the stream is very swift, the platters begin to keel and lurch and dip and so on. You still can keep your eye on your own platter. But after a little while, the platter merges with thousands of other lights, a sight for the gods to see. And then you lose sight of your own platter. To try and track the career of a painter in Indian art is akin to keeping an eye on the platter of your own thoughts. So it's not easy. It's not easy at all. I had been pursuing Nainsukh for a number of years of my life. Not because I thought he was the greatest of the painters of the Pahadi area, but because I was drawn to him greatly. And where could I find information on him? We had a name just hanging about like a firefly in the night, not anything around it. We knew that he worked for a small prince who was probably even a pretender to the throne of a very small state, a man by the name of Balwant Singh. But beyond that, we had no information on him. The family knew the name. The family's descendants are still there. I worked with them and so on. But eventually, I thought I should look for information on Nainsukh in a very unlikely place. I went to places of pilgrimage, like Kurukshetra, like Pehova, like Haridwar and so on. And there the priests keep records of all visitors who come to this area. Because the priests perform rituals for the families, and there's an enduring relationship between a family of clients and a family of priests and so on. And I thought I'll try my luck at Haridwar, which I did. I landed up in Haridwar and located the priestly family which used to serve the village of Guler, or the tiny little state of Guler, and I started asking around. And they said, yeah, we have Guler records, but we don't know any painter, because Nainsukh was born in 1710, died in 1778, that we are certain of, and so on. So I said, but it must be some record. They said, no, we don't have anything, and so on. But 3 days later, I was staying in a little sarai. This pandit, this priest, as the sun was setting, sort of came into my room and said, I believe you were looking for the Bahi, that is the register of pilgrims from Guler. I said, yes, I was. And I asked you. He says, I did not say yes at that particular time because this particular register was sub judice. It was in a court of law. The records had been sealed. But somehow, knowing your anxiety about this particular thing, I have been able to take it out of surreptitiously from the court's records, and here it is. And I held the Bahi in my hand and felt a sort of sense of excitement and thrill about it. And then I started leafing through it. He said, I don't know where Nainsukh is, the person you are looking for. And I started leafing through it, page after page, page after page. And suddenly, when I turned one particular leaf, there was an entry, a full-page entry in the hand of Nainsukh himself. He had come there in the year 1763, and he wrote a 9-line entry in his own hand in a very, very neat Devanagari script, where he says, on this particular day, Samvat 1820, which works out to 1763, I came here. I am the son of so-and-so, the grandson of so-and-so, the great-grandson of so-and-so. On the maternal side, my grandfather was so-and-so, and my great-grandfather was so-and-so. I do not know whether this priest who has brought this register to me is the authentic one, because my brother was here. And if some other priest shows up with the records of my brother's writing and so on, that will be more authentic than this and so on, like that. Extraordinary information. He gives information about his ancestry, gives a precise date, and the Pandit records along with that Nainsukh came here to immerse the ashes of his patron Raja Balwant Singh. What is even more extraordinary was the fact that on that particular sheet, at the very top of the entry in his own hand, Nainsukh had made a drawing. He must have picked up the brush with which he was writing, the column with which he was writing, and then he drew very swiftly. I think it may not have taken him more than a minute and a half to do that. A wonderful little drawing, which I shall show you in a moment, showing Shiva along with Parvati seated on a Bagh Charma, on a tiger skin, and Bhagirath, who had been instrumental in asking Shiva to bear the weight of the Ganges and so on, standing like this with folded hands. Extraordinary. 1.5 inches by 2 inches or so. Now I ask you as an art historian, what else do you ask for? Can you possibly ask for? A drawing in the hand of the painter that I was looking for myself, a date, the name of a painter, ancestry and so on. That became, for me, a document the like of which I think in the whole of Indian art does not exist. But why is Nainsukh important? Is his line important? Are the themes that he chose to work on important? Is the general quality of his mind important? That is the thing that one should really be aware of. Nainsukh is important for me, not only because he drew with a line which is unbelievably light. I mean, somebody said of Leonardo's drawings, they do not seem to have been drawn, they seem to have been breathed upon paper. That is the quality of Nainsukh's drawing. But more than that, Nainsukh was an agent of change. He is the one who brought about an extraordinary change in the way that things had been happening in the Pahadi area by other people who had been active there before him. What you're looking at on the screen is not Nainsukh. I mean, I'm starting in the Upanishadic fashion, 18, oh, it is not this, it is not this. So this is a little image which I photographed, excuse me, from Jaisalmer, and I see it as a symbol of darkness and just a little pinpoint of light over there. I put my camera against the closed door of the place where the murals were. I have no idea who these women are. Are they gopis in search of Krishna? Are they princesses going for a mela or something like this? As long as I can work this out. Now this is the kind of work which was being done before Nainsukh. Extraordinary work. Work of great quality. Rasamanjari, love of a most passionate kind, painted by the painter Kripal of Noorpur, saturated in color, pulsating with life. But at the level of abstraction, everything about it is removed from observable reality. This kind of work, of which we see a great deal, before Nainsukh came on the scene, has a quality of enticement, it is seductive in the extreme, that you and I are looking at. What is this young woman doing at this particular point of time? Is she waiting for the lover? Perhaps she is. And the extraordinary fluorescence behind her as she stands with a flower in her own hand and so on, are paintings that it's not easy to take out of your mind. Now this is the kind of work that his elder brother, Nainsukh's elder brother, the painter Manaku, was doing. From Geet Govind, 1730, one of the very rare dated manuscripts on this particular period. And once again, you see the intensity of color, the intensity of feeling in these. This was standard thing. But this, now what you are looking at, is just about the beginning of the change I was going to talk to about. This is a portrait of a Pandit made by Nainsukh's father, Pandit Siv. And this is the kind of work which was to come after Nainsukh. So somewhere between that and this kind of work, we will bring Nainsukh in. Now this extraordinary painting, which is difficult to resist, from the Gita Govinda, where are we? Radha and Krishna on the banks of the Yamuna. Radha is taking Krishna home because the sky has turned unfriendly. There's a thunderstorm brewing. And the poet says, on the banks of the Yamuna, the love of Radha and Krishna began to unfold. Unfolding is the point of the picture. Look at it a little closely, from a little closer quarters. The tenderness between them, the ability of the painter to shut out the world, as it were, from its system. It built up its silences which are unbelievably palpable. This is the kind of work which Nainsukh's work led to eventually. When you publish a painting like this and say this is a woman running indoors, you're not adding to anybody's information. Clearly, she is a woman and she is going indoors. But when you relate it to the kind of poetry to which it is, on which it is based, Dhurva ho hi nali uthaye, dhuma dharani chahu kod, jarat avat jagat ko pavas prathama payod. So the poet Bihari said. She says she's a virhini, separated in love from her, in love, or what is she waiting for the lover, and she cannot bear the sight of the clouds when they arrive, they come into the sky, because this is a season of longing which begins to stir in your frames. And she says to herself, that is not the cloud of monsoon in the sky. That is a cloud which is a smoke which rises from the fire of separation. I cannot bear the sight, therefore must I run indoors. That is the point. Now these paintings were made possible by this man, Nainsukh. Young, as we say it in Hindi, abhi mase bhi nahi bhigi hain, like that. Very young, but self-aware. It's a self-portrait by Nainsukh. He's an unprepossessing appearance, buck teeth, not a particularly handsome man, but he shows himself in the act of painting. And how do we see him showing himself? This is the face of the man, but the way we see him holding this little tablet on which a sheet of paper has been pasted, he holds a brush in his hand. But is he drawing? No. He is envisioning something. Most painters' portraits seen in the act of painting or drawing show them half-finished picture on the page. Here it's all blank. And the brush is held poised just above the sheet of paper, as if, and his eyes are somewhere else, envisioning. And that is the kind of thing that Nainsukh was capable of thinking and doing. Now this man made a portrait of his father, Pandit Siv. Simple portrait on a tiny little piece of paper, and of his elder brother, Manuku, a gifted painter, gifted beyond belief. So he is aware of his ancestry, his relationships, and that is the way it is going here. And this is a man whom he attached himself to, Raja Balwant Singh of Jasrota, very tiny little principality in the Jammu area, and somehow this was the magical coming together of a great connoisseur, a great patron, and a great painter. Balwant Singh, about whom there is a lot of controversy, whether he came from this state or that state, I'll now take you into that territory. Balwant Singh was a rasik in the true sense of the term. Art mattered to him. And Nainsukh left his hometown Guler, attached himself to this prince of taste and imagination, and a dreamer in this fashion. This young man, the prince we are talking about, is identified by Nainsukh in his own hand in a Thakri inscription on the top of the register. You cannot read it, I can, but all it says is, the day on which I painted this particular portrait of my patron, that is Balwant Singh, his age was this and he was standing at this particular spot. So there's a sense of appropriateness and of specificity in Nainsukh's work which is completely missing in contemporaries of his own from the Pahadi area. Balwant Singh was young, as you could see for yourself, fond of the good things of life, fond of music, fond of dance and so on and so forth, and certainly fond of smoking from his favorite hookah. Balwant Singh. Nainsukh started painting him in all kinds of situations. And this is a record which went on for something like 12 years. Balwant Singh doing this, Balwant Singh doing that, Balwant Singh not bathing but standing with an umbrella in his hand like an ordinary man supervising construction, Balwant Singh having his beard trimmed and so on and so forth. So it is a story in a certain sense that Nainsukh started building up. It's an affecting picture. Balwant Singh listening to music. Tenu kin sikhlaiyan Naina diya choriyan dilbar mereya is written on the top of this particular painting. This painting was done on this particular day, and this was the person who was singing, and Balwant Singh, the inscription at the top is very, very clear. But this is an iconic picture that you and I should look at with some care. Balwant Singh seated on his throne, and Nainsukh the painter, who's grown a little heavier around the middle, standing behind him, having just presented a picture to his patron. While the patron is looking at it with a degree of care, Balwant Singh anxiously, neck craned forward, probably wanting to listen to a word of praise or appreciation from his patron. While this is going on, there is music being played, there are courtiers coming and sitting down and so on, like that. But just look at this. After a while, Balwant Singh is almost taken for granted by Nainsukh, and he pays attention to minor characters. Have a look at the fingers of the drummer. I mean, you can see that Nainsukh has observed it so intensely, so closely, that the fingers are poised, to strike the drum at this particular point of time. He is very, very interested in music and very interested in specific moments like that. Minor characters interest him. The humanity inside of him surfaces every now and then, and we get some superb portraiture in the hand of Nainsukh. Where did this all come from? If he was descended from a tradition where there is intensity of color, where there is a level of abstraction his father and other people had done and so on, it came from his contact possibly with some Mughal paintings. This incidentally is the page from the priestly register that I was talking about. The inscription, very clearly written in the hand of Nainsukh himself. the drawing that I was talking about like this. What could be more appropriate than this for a painter to leave a record? And if you pay attention to the manner in which, for instance, the tail of the tiger skin trails on the floor and so on, it's almost as if it could come to life any moment. The ability of Nainsukh to zero in on these kinds of details is astonishing. Takes your breath away. One generation later, a nephew of Nainsukh came, also drew the same kind of a scene of Shiva and Parvati, but nothing compared to what Nainsukh himself was able to do. These are the kind of Mughal paintings which must have come into Nainsukh's possession, or he must have seen them. This is a work by Nainsukh, modelled upon a Mughal painting. Who is this person? To the left, none else than Aurangzeb. And Nainsukh now has the ability and the courage to leave the entire page, the background completely bare, and distinguishes between the foreground and the background by a simple thin line with which he establishes planes. And when he makes a mistake, he very often painters do, most often they do, he does not cover it. He has the energy and as I said, the courage to leave it at there. I mean, this is what I have done. I have made an error and I'm correcting it. It is like a correcting fluid being sort of applied on a sheet of paper. This is a Nawab of Punjab called Mir Mannu, and so a portrait of Nainsukh, Mir Mannu in the hand of Nainsukh. Now these paintings must have been modelled upon or inspired by Mughal works which Nainsukh must have had access to. But the miracle of it all is that he learns from them and then abandons them. I mean, like a Zen master saying, listen to me and then forget what you have heard from me, or something like that, and so on. Now he is moved into his own environment after having learned whatever lessons he had to learn from Mughal painting, and paint some extraordinary studies of landscape, of people. Just look at the greenery in the, as the poet says, sunkar aur dekhkar jise hawas mein thandak si aavase. Very kind of a cool descends upon you when you look at a painting like this. A Raja, that is Balwant Singh's father, Zorawar Singh, whom he also served for a little while, watching a dance performance. The inscription says, this is the dancer, her name is given, and there are these people behind her dancing. Just look at the stance of the dancer. She has thrown up her hands into the air as if the drummer has come to a sum, and this is the moment, the precise moment that Nainsukh is able to capture. And these are the musicians who stand behind the dancer. A young boy craning his neck forward, the fingers exquisitely rendered. One man playing upon cymbals, like that. Minor characters which would not have deserved the attention of a great many artists of his own generation or before him are things or people that he is interested in. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this particular painting by Nainsukh. It's in the Boston Museum of Fine Arts. I had the occasion to refer to it 2 days ago. Wild elephants being captured with the help of tame elephants. There is a commotion extraordinary commotion down there. Just register the details of this particular sling about. In the middle, there is a lake or a pond in which elephants are bathing, and beyond that, towards the top or at the very end, at the far back, are these rolling hills. This is what demands our attention immediately. The energy of the elephants, tame or wild, is captured magnificently by Nainsukh. And the young, and then the men in a very, very small scale painted up and down and to the side and so on. But when we are looking at this is a small painting, smaller than an A4 sheet of paper. And when you look at this, then of course in the middle distance you see these elephants bathing, sporting in waters. But one thing that you and I have not noticed, we are unable to notice because of the small size of the thing, is this. Just beyond the lake, there is a tree to the right under which a little monkey is sitting. The eye cannot take it in. You and I cannot with our naked eyes discern it at all. It is only through magnification of the kind that we are using that we see that. And the monkey is so small but is perfectly articulated. Red face, a kind of a curling tail, and I am sure you can see it now, perhaps. There, and just under that tree to the extreme right is that little monkey. Why would Nainsukh paint things like this? There must be a reason. There must indeed be a reason. Is he trying to win a bet with the contemporary? Is he challenging himself? Can I do it on this scale? Am I capable of doing it? Nainsukh is constantly, I believe, challenging himself. And this man, innovative and poetic at the same time, paints a picture like this. One of his patrons, Mukund Dev, the brother of Balwant Singh, going through a field of mustard. On horseback, in front there is a singer, a woman who turns her head alertly, perkily towards the back to see whether the patron is following, a musician on one horse, another musician on yet another horse, and other people following and so on. Days of leisure, delight, enjoyment. And that the sprays of those mustard stalks on the ground through which, it's like a rain of yellow, through which the procession is moving. This intensely poetic quality, this ability of the artist to visualize, he's not actually accompanying the ruler at this particular point of time. He has envisioned it, the like of which he might have seen, but is not actually on that particular moment a witness to this. Most unlikely scenes, themes picked up by Nainsukh. Hawk bringing down a duck. And if you look in the distance, far distance, there are goats munching upon leaves, there are all kinds of little characters moving about, but this is where Nainsukh wants us to really concentrate. At the back of this, there is a verse written, and the verse talks about my lover suddenly held me in his arms, pounced upon me like a hawk on a duck. The poetry, the poesy, if you like, of these pictures stays in your mind forever. Balwant Singh, seen writing a letter, every single word on that sheet on which he's writing, you can read. 9 lines of Thakri, script of the hills. He's writing a letter to a nephew of his, and so on. And Balwant Singh had no great estate, no great state on which he was master of, but celebrations. And just look at this extraordinary assemblage of people making music. The Pahari musicians, there are 7 of them. Their trumpets moving poised in different directions. Their cheeks swollen with really breathing upon this and so on and so forth. Who else, I ask you, than Nainsukh would have thought of just painting a complete picture by itself in this? Balwant Singh is imagined by Nainsukh as really a great ruler who has all kinds of resources at his disposal. Here he is moving towards a copse in the forest with daily life. A Pandit bringing a group of people who are going to make a presentation or a petition to the prince. And where is the prince? Far in the distance, there is a structure on the top of which the size of half a nail is Nainsukh, is Balwant Singh peeping down. The portraiture is extraordinary. The Nainsukh has captured not only the appearance but the character of this wily Pandit who is leading possibly a rebellion against him. These men who are following him, the simplicity of it all and the intensity of it all takes you by surprise. Balwant Singh, like an ordinary anxious house builder, standing with an umbrella over his head, looking at the process of construction. And this extraordinary image, this is a dream image. A prince has dreamt that he had a darshan of Vishnu in the form of Shaligram, that little ammonite stone which is held sacred. And what does he show? The prince is standing with folded hands. There is a kind of contraption, a little structure with yellow garment on it, Pitavastra belonging to Vishnu, and on that there's a garland, there is a sacred stone, and above that rises the great hood of Shesha with 1,000 heads. You need a very powerful lens in your hand to be able to see what Nainsukh is able to achieve. Nainsukh imagines that Balwant Singh was a great shikari, a great huntsman. Maybe he never hunted in his entire life. Who knows? But a painting of Jahangir bringing down a lion who has attacked the elephant must have been at the back of his mind. So we have this grandiose image of the prince on the back of the elephant in a howdah, an elephant sort of clawing the front of the lion like this. Balwant Singh, however, apparently ran into bad times. He went out occasionally, came back extremely tired, as you can see for yourselves, warming himself on fire, which has been lit for him, and Balwant Singh had to leave his kingdom, so I believe. Nobody has to agree. I believe that he had to leave his state in a surreptitious manner. Some conspiracy at the court level must have been in the air. So he is bidding farewell or taking leave of his Ishta, of his favored deity, Vishnu. The man who is reading from a text at the extreme right is the same Pandit whom we saw before, Pandit Harisaran by name. And what is he reading? On the little leaf that he has in his hand, a shloka in Sanskrit is inscribed. Shat karano vidyate mantra, right? It's talking about secrecy. A mantra is a secret thing. If it reaches 6 years, it is gone. It's no longer secret. If it reaches only 4 years, which means 2 people share it, there's a possibility it might survive as a secret. And if it is between 2 years, that is only your own ears, then Brahma himself will never be able to fathom what is going on. All written on that tiny leaf which he's holding. Balwant Singh fell upon bad days. So here he sits, writing a letter, the man behind him with his retainer, with a morchal, peacock tail, fly whisk in his hand, has gone off to sleep more or less. And Balwant Singh sits like this. Which painter would paint his patron, bereft of the upper garment, sitting like this, hunched up on a makeshift kind of a bed in the field? So Nainsukh is like this. He keeps recalling the grand days of Balwant Singh himself. But look at the delicacy of it. The stem of the hookah from which he is smoking is not resting on the floor, but a large plantain leaf, there's no carpet anymore, is placed on that plantain leaf. There's joy in these pictures. And there's also a certain amount of pathos in these. Nainsukh is, as I said, is a person who thinks of the oddest things to paint. 7 swords belonging to the ruler, resting on this contraption. They must have been like this. And each of these swords, I can assure you, you can see in paintings of Nainsukh where Balwant Singh, his patron, is carrying this sword or that or that. You can identify them exactly as he must have carried them by his side. It's no ordinary man that we are talking of. A man who thought of different things. There is fun in his pictures, humor, there is sarcasm, but humanity, the deep embedded humanity inside of himself. Balwant Singh being made fun of by mimics, by nakals. There he sits smoking his hookah grandiosely, and one man, one of the nakals, he sits on the floor and he is assuming the stance of Balwant Singh with this little sort of scroll which spreads out like the stem of the hookah and so on. One person is dancing, having put on the clothes of a woman, and there are all these 6 people standing behind, musicians. One has to have, they're fun. I mean, Balwant Singh's horse, he has gone on boar hunting, and the boar has appeared from behind. The horse kicks the boar to death, right like that. Balwant Singh has had nothing to do with it. The horse has done it for him. And he records it like this. So there is this kind of a mischievous element, a fun element in Nainsukh's work, which is difficult to find in the work of other painters. Balwant Singh having his beard trimmed. The barber stands, so does the patron, and the snipping of the scissors can almost be heard. But the patron, that is Balwant Singh, standing like a prisoner, hands folded in front of him, and eyes closed, lest if hair should travel to the eyes and something like this. No other painter that I know of would think of themes like this or a treatment of this particular order. Here, Nainsukh goes to a place where no other painter of his generation had gone. By the fireside, a group of men. This kind of treatment of the night effects, cast shadows, is virtually unknown in the whole of Indian painting. The shadow of one man, with his turban cast on the wall at the back, a young woman who's probably served them just now, turning to look back like this. The effect is astonishing. A truly stunning ability on the part of this particular painter. And he does these mysterious things like this. A great big boat drifting down a river. And what is in that boat? There are architecture, there are palaces, there are mountains, and so on and so forth. What does it all mean? Where does it come from? Is it a recollection of the life of Balwant Singh drifting away or something like that? We don't know. Is it a folk tale which is being told? We don't know. But this is what the boat contains. In the center of the boat, there is elephants, there are all kinds, there is one man, obviously Balwant Singh, seated on the prow towards the left, a snow-clad, a snow-bound sort of mountain rock towards the right, and in the center is a sannyasi, is an ascetic, and next to him is standing a Muslim-looking gentleman with a tall staff in his hand. By his side is a tiny little figure of a woman. And the inscription on this says, he says, what madness is this a time to get married? Something like this. Is this a time to get married? Finally, Balwant Singh dies, 1763. Nainsukh comes with his ashes to Haridwar. And there is this little structure set up, a tent-like structure, not too unlike where we are sitting, with two attendants waving fly whisks over a little structure in which the ashes of Balwant Singh, before they are immersed, are placed. There's an ineffable sadness on this face. This man who's holding a morchal, I'm sure is recalling to his mind better days, when the morchal, the peacock tail fly whisk, was waved over his patron when he was good and healthy. And that shrine, if you like, which contains a little vessel in which the ashes of Balwant Singh are there. I'm coming to the end of this, your trials and my time. Just look at this with some degree of care again. Balwant Singh out hunting a duck. The background is completely bare, as you can see for yourself, with the hiding behind or taking the shelter of a bull which is being led gently by an assistant so that there's no noise. The duck should not suspect that somebody is creeping up on it. Exquisitely drawn bull. The man who's bending low, trying to steady the bull, asking it to move noiselessly. Balwant Singh with a musket in his hand, creeping up behind him. And the hapless bird, unsuspecting, in front. When you look at this painting or this drawing long enough, you almost hold your own breath for fear that the noise might reach the bird. This is the kind of atmosphere Nainsukh is capable of creating in his work. What looks like the facade of a great big palace, it is a facade of a great big palace. I don't think Balwant Singh owned a palace like this, but it's imagined. But if you notice, if your eyes are keen and you're looking for these kinds of details, up there in the middle of it is Balwant Singh standing, looking at, just enjoying the sight of the clouds as they gather in the sky. And the inscription says, Maza sama barsat da dikhde likhe de haenge janab, right? The janab, that is His Highness or whatever, is enjoying the sight of the monsoon clouds as they gather in the sky. Nainsukh did all kinds of other things, but not many of them have survived. He painted a Ragamala, and this is Ragini Madhu Madhavi in Nainsukh's hand. Clouds in the sky, a young woman running away from the sight of the clouds which affect her. And just look at this. The dupatta that she is wearing is absolutely filled with stars, as if they're descended from the heavens on high, down below. The rain is beginning to fall. There's a magical quality in these paintings. A symbol of longing, erotic symbol, if you like, to the right. And this, even more affecting, is another leaf. Only 3 leaves have survived from the Ragamala series, which he painted perhaps towards the end of his life, of Rag Kedara, a quiet rag, as you see it. A disciple and a recluse. This is a man. Before him, his disciple to be places himself, playing on a double-gourded veena. This is the man who's come to seek enlightenment in the quiet of the night. We get closer to them. Notice the way in which the fingers are disposed on the stem of the veena. Notice the extraordinary innocence, sweetness on the face of the master, and the anxiety to learn, pay homage on the part of this man, all in the darkness of the night, as a vigilant cat keeps an eye out. And it is in this situation that silence prevails. Nothing else to see, nothing else outside of this image. Silence, building up within yourself and mind, is what Nainsukh was capable of achieving as an atmosphere. I've taken a bit long over this, but I wanted to end with this particular painting because in the hope that it will stay in your mind as it does in mine. Thank you very much for your attention.
That was wonderful. Thank you so, so much. Thank you to Mr. Goswamy. Thank you to Pramod K.G. That was an absolutely wonderful ending to Day 4 of the Jaipur Literature Festival. It was like a warm, beautiful bath. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I would love you to direct them to our esteemed guest personally, if that's okay, because we have run a little bit over. But it was such a beautiful session. Thank you so much for being here with us at the Jaipur Literature Festival. We have some wonderful music tonight. We hope you'll come and celebrate with us tonight. The Chicago Children's Choir, the Harpreet, the Punjabi and Hindu folk band from India, and Joaquin Ruiz Caravana from Spain. That's all going on at Hotel Clarkson there. And in the grand tradition of opening and closing each day, I must say thank you to all of our sponsors. So thank you again for all your patience and all your support. And I will just read this list very quickly. DSC, Tata Steel, Google, Airtel, Coca-Cola, Rajasthan Tourism, Councilage, Public Diplomacy, ICCR, Incredible India, Glenlivet, Nine Hills, and Kingfisher, Vodafone, Rajasthan Patrika, The Hindu, DNA, Danik Bhaskar, Hindustan Times, the Directorate of Film Festivals, the Foundation of Young Miskalski, Harvard University